sometimes like our next segment is about the Ukraine-Russia war. And it's really, I think, important when you're talking about these type of things that you don't get lost in the abstractions, because we just finished talking about Charlie Kirk. And it's easy to talk about the Ukraine-Russia war as like, dots on a map, what villages got taken by who. But that war is the same thing as the video that we all saw. How many kids in Ukraine in some random dish are getting also hit in the head, the shoulder, the neck, and bleeding out there? So let's remember the reality that when we're talking about this Ukraine war, it's not just like abstractions, dollars, whatever, lines on the map. It's actual kids out there in the field and men getting shot and killed. So, Chris, can you give us yeah?
No, I was just going to say, and if you want, I did an interview probably at the start of this year with a pastor from Ukraine. If you want to see something really emotional about the war and have it connect with you and its real consequences, there's an interview I did with a Ukrainian pastor who adopted, I think, something like 60 children.
That was the chaplain.
A chaplain.
He was incredible.
Yes. And one of his children died.
Oh, she was killed by a tank.
By a tank.
Horrifying.
In Ukraine. And these are real people.
Yeah, the guy was like a bear. He was huge. He cried on camera. It was hard to watch. Man.
So what's going on with Poland? There were some airspace incursions?
A little background. We haven't talked about the Ukraine war much on this show. Russia occupies about 20% of the country. Since they gained quite a bit last year, the regions, it's really concentrated in the east. You have, on the bottom, you have Crimea, which they already had back from 2014. Then it goes up all the way to Luhansk, where they basically have the entire oblast there. So on Wednesday, there were reports, actually I got a notification that there were drones flying over Poland. Mm-hmm. And there were 3 drones that were shot down that officials currently, they believe they originated in Belarus. Mm. And they were not armed from what we know so far. They were equipped with cameras, and they seem to be very crudely made. We can pull up a few pictures of them, but they had a mix. It looked like a fiberglass and wood, and they almost had the same security cameras affixed to them that you would see in like a grocery store. Just one of those orbs. And 3 of them were shot down. There was debris from parts of those drones or other drones that had crashed that was located in other parts of eastern Poland.
So hold on. Are these drones, like when you say drones, because what you sound like you're describing is almost like a drone that like a hobbyist could make, or like I could make.
They looked very similar so far from what I've seen to model aircraft.
They claimed they were surveillance drones,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, they claim that, well, some people are saying surveillance drones. We don't really have a full picture yet. It's still being investigated by the Polish authorities. But what we do know is as a result of them flying over Poland, they were shot down. And we have a clip here of what happened when one of them was shot down in the aftermath. Let's go to that.
I turned on the TV and all the news was about this massive drone flight. And after a while, I heard a plane flying over. And suddenly, it seemed to descend more rapidly, and the roar grew louder. And suddenly, something boomed. The light fell from the ceiling in the downstairs living room. I looked out the window, and there were sheets of metal flying from the roof. I ran out into the yard, and I saw the whole roof in shreds. Everything was destroyed.
So there, his house was destroyed. He was actually watching the news, hearing about the fact that there were drones. If you say the news is dead,
oh, that's wild.
It can be life-saving. And it was in the case of our media company for a bunch of people during COVID. But for this guy, he heard that there were drones flying overhead. He heard a buzzing sound, and then he was kind of on alert. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, the roof caved in. And it was probably, from the reports that we're getting, it was probably a result of the missile hitting the drone and then that coming down, as opposed to the drone itself. But his house is pretty much totaled.
Hope he has insurance.
Yeah.
But I guess my question is like what is it the type of drone that like is made in like Lockheed Martin and costs $22 million?
No, that's not from what I looked at and the information that was coming out on various news agencies and from the Polish government. These seem to be kind of crudely made surveillance drones.
Mm-hmm. So it could just be like Boris from Belarus, like some random guy doing it, or the state?
Some people are saying it was a mistake. The Polish Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, actually said this is the closest we've been to an open conflict since World War II. So he wasn't very happy about this. And actually, Poland invoked Article 4 of the NATO treaty, which I just want to read that part. The parties will consult together whenever, in the opinion of any of them, the territorial integrity, political independence, or security of any of the parties is threatened. So this has been invoked 7 times so far. The first time was we just had the anniversary that we honored, 9/11, for the United States when we were attacked. And then what comes after, in the case of serious events, and this has only happened once, is an invocation of Article 5, which is basically that groups of countries come together to take out the threat. That hasn't happened, and there has been other cases where Russian or Ukrainian drones or missiles or other forms of debris from explosions have ended up in other countries that are NATO allies.
Poland, there was an apartment building in Poland where I think at least 2 people died, right?
Yeah.
It wound up being a Ukrainian missile, if I'm not mistaken.
So I have a number of cases here. One of them in Romania in March, which is also a NATO ally. Fragments of a Russian drone carrying explosive were found in one of their counties, and it was 500 meters from the border of Moldova. Moldova, also not a NATO ally, but they have also had a ton of debris from the conflict end up there. You have an unarmed aerial vehicle that crashed into Croatia. This is kind of during the onset of the war. And then in December of 2023, there was a big attack on Ukraine. There was a Russian cruise missile that attacked, and it violated Polish airspace for about 3 minutes. So there's been a number of instances. And when I first heard about this story of the drones being shot down in Poland, I heard about it with these headlines that World War III was imminent. I mean, I was looking at these sites, and it's very irresponsible what some people publish.
Yeah.
But I've heard that so many times, and all of these different instances were triggers for those type of headlines. Basically, people seize upon the fact that NATO allies are having some type of debris or material or even a drone or even a missile pass into their airspace, and then they'll use it to kind of to the fullest extent of what it's worth, to spin a narrative. But there's dozens of incidents since the war has started. We've been in this conflict for too long, number of years. And so far, it's just one of these situations where they're assessing the origin of it. The last time this happened, there was a statement out saying that, even if it was Ukraine's fault instead of Russia, it's basically Russia's fault to begin with, because without them, they wouldn't be in the war. Right. So these opportunities are seized upon from people on various sides. And, it's kind of used in a propaganda war as well. Yeah,
I agree. That's the difficulty of reporting on this. Like Josh said the fog of war. That's why it's very hard for me to even report on war issues, because I know, like, unless I'm like knee deep in all the little details, and I know, like, I'm following the Twitter accounts of every single like agency and individual, and I'm like, really I have even sources on the ground. Unless I have that, if I'm just reporting at like a superficial level, I'm being used by one side or the other to push some kind of propaganda.
It's my stance too. I very rarely cover wars, unless there's like some major update, just because there's so much fake information.
And that information is then used to do more harm. But in this case, President Zelensky of Ukraine utilized this opportunity, or however you want to frame it, to call upon a joint air defense. He wants to train Western countries in how to handle these Russian drones. that could invade their airspace, and also, I guess, Central European countries. And there's been a number of NATO members who have committed to sending defense technology over to Ukraine. It's Germany, France, the Netherlands, Czech Republic, and Lithuania so far. And there's been a lot of strong statements from NATO. The Kremlin, on the other hand, has said that there's nothing new to add here. That was their official spokesman, Dmitry Peskov. He said, the full quote is, "As for the rhetoric and statements that we hear from Warsaw, well, actually, there's nothing new here. This rhetoric has been characteristic of almost all European capitals lately. We see its continuation."
You know, briefly on that though, the crazy thing is, like, this is like really the backyard of a lot of countries.
Yes,
Like, it's not like
yes.
it's like this is some random, like, isolated place. There's a lot of surrounding countries, like basically with a full-scale war happening next door.
Yeah, if they're attacking in the west of Ukraine, like around Lvov, they'll be 30 kilometers away from Poland, and then in this instance, they're up in the north, the topmost portion of Ukraine. I'm sure we'll have a map on here, but that's where Belarus is. That's where they entered. But towards the bottom, you have a very long border with Romania. They've had a lot of these experiences. It's a very dangerous situation, where because of the proximity of some of these territories that Russia is advancing their military in and doing these air surveillance drills, they call them. It's bound to cause a ton of more problems, and it's no doubt that we'll hear more about.
Well, and if you're in those countries, it's way more real than it is for us over here. I mean, the memory is not far off, So yeah.
Of the Russians coming.
Of the Russians coming, exactly, and Poland were calling Russia Soviet this week. And
all right, so there you have it. If you read a headline that said Poland attacked by Russia, or if you read such subsequent headlines in the near future, just keep in mind the people writing those headlines might have ulterior motives of making you believe that what is it? Article 4 and Article 5 need to be invoked. So keep that in mind. All right, I know exactly what you're thinking. That was a great clip you just watched. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to follow and also check out either these videos or maybe they're on this side. I don't know which side they're on, but we set it up so these are the videos that YouTube is suggesting to you as the best ones that you'll probably like the most. So check them out, this side,